IBC Tamil.
வணக்கம் நேயர்களே, மற்ற மகிழ்ச்சியோட சந்திப்பதில் மிக்க மகிழ்ச்சி. பிரிட்டனில் சுமார் 3 லட்சத்துக்கும் அதிகமான ஈழத்தமிழ் மக்கள் புலம்பெயர்ந்து வாழ்ந்து வருகிறார்கள். பிரித்தானியாவின் சமூக பொருளாதார மற்றும் வர்த்தக நடவடிக்கைகளுக்கு, வர்த்தக மேம்பாட்டுக்கு காத்திரமான பங்களிப்பை வழங்கி வரும் நமது ஈழத்தமிழ் சமூகம் உள்நாட்டு அரசியலிலும் கணிசமான பங்களிப்பை வழங்கி வருகிறார்கள். குறிப்பாக தேர்தல்கள் என்று வரும்போது எதிர்கால கட்சிகளை தீர்மானிக்கும் சக்திகளாக, அதில் கணிசமான பங்களிப்பை வழங்குபவர்களாக ஈழத்தமிழ் மக்கள் காணப்படுகிறார்கள். ஆனாலும் ஈழத்தமிழ் மக்கள் தமது உரிமைகளை முன்னெடுப்பதில், உள்நாட்டில் அது போர்க்குற்ற விசாரணையாக இருந்தாலும் சரி, மனித உரிமை மேம்பாடுகளாக இருந்தாலும் சரி, தமது உரிமைகளை பெற்றுக்கொள்வதில் அல்ல தமது பிரச்சனைகளை தீர்த்துக் கொள்வதில், சர்வதேச சமூகத்தின் உதவியை பெற்றுக்கொள்வதில், குறிப்பாக பிரித்தானியாவின் சப்போர்ட்டை, அதாவது ஆதரவை பெற்றுக்கொள்வதில் எவ்வளவுக்கு வெற்றி பெற்றிருக்கிறார்கள்? இவர்கள் பயன்படுத்தப்படுகிறார்களா அல்லது இந்த அரசாங்கங்கள் உதவியை பெற்றுக்கொள்கிறார்களா என்பதில் வாத பிரதிவாதங்கள் இருக்கத்தான் செய்கின்றன. ஆகவே இந்த நிலையில் தமிழர்களுக்கு, ஈழத்தமிழ் மக்களுக்கு, பிரித்தானியாவில் வாழ்ந்து வரும் ஈழத்தமிழ் மக்களுக்கு தொடர்ச்சியாக ஆதரவு வாக்குகள் கொடுத்து வரும் மிச்சம் மற்றும் மூடன் பகுதி நாடாளுமன்ற உறுப்பினர் சிபோன் மெக்டோனா அவர்களை நாம் இன்று நிலைய கலையம் அழைத்திருக்கிறோம் இது குறித்து விவாதிப்பதற்காக. மேடம், தேங்க்ஸ் ஃபார் ஜாயினிங் அஸ்.
You're welcome.
You know, the London mayoral election is coming.
Yes.
On May 5th. And 12 candidates are fighting to replace the incumbent Mayor Boris Johnson. And how prepared is your party to face this election?
I think we're very prepared. We've been working for a long time. Sadiq Khan is our Labour candidate. He's my neighbour in Tooting. He's a great guy, son of a bus driver, very much a Londoner, a Pakistani Londoner, a person who understands the great things the city can do for your family, but also how difficult it can be to live in at some times. So I think he offers something for everybody, and we're really excited at the prospect of his becoming the next Mayor of London.
What is your main points? Why do you think people should vote for him?
Well, I think his main area of concern is housing. You'll know just how expensive a city it is to live in London, even just how difficult it is to find somewhere to live. So Sadiq wants to increase the supply of housing, put strong restrictions on how rent grows, and do something about the international investment that's going on in our housing in our city, which crowds out all those kind of families and young couples who want to buy their first home.
So are you convinced that he will put up a big fight, or you think he will absolutely win?
Well, winning depends on the electorate, but does he stand a great chance? Has he fought a great campaign? Does he have the best policies? Yes to all those questions.
Are you going for more council houses? Is that what you suggest, or are you going for individual houses?
Well, everything. We need more houses for people to be able to buy at a price that's affordable. We need more houses for rent at a price that is affordable. I don't think it's an either or. We need something that suits everybody. I mean, it's just the prices are beginning to crowd out all but the most wealthy, and we really need to do something about that, or our city will grind to a halt.
This election is going to be almost a test case for the Labour Party, which is coming after the parliament election defeat, which ultimately gave your opponent, the Conservative Party, an absolute majority. And how is your party doing under the new leader?
Well, I think it's early days. Jeremy is from a different bit of the Labour Party than would normally be elected. So we just got to see how it goes. He was elected by a vast proportion of our members, and you know, he's trying his best, and we'll see how it works.
But there are widespread allegations. I don't know whether it's baseless or with facts, but there are allegations that Mr. Jeremy Corbyn is not getting the fullest support, not from outside, even within the party, to take his campaign forward against the Conservative Party or to come back to power. Is it correct?
I think you've seen some of the best contributions in the House of Commons over recent weeks and months have been from MPs who were regarded as not supporting Jeremy. So those people are there in order to back him up and to put on a good argument in the House of Commons. And I assure you, everybody wants to beat the Tories.
But what do you think is the reason for the defeat? I'm sure you would have analysed the facts why you lost.
Well, I don't think we had a great view of the future, and we didn't articulate a passion for what we wanted to do. I think people were unclear what we were about, felt they knew what the Tories were about, and were willing to plump for a party that they felt was going to tackle the deficit and be quite tough on some of the things that they thought needed to be done. They weren't as clear about that we would actually do that.
But this new leader, Jeremy Corbyn being the new leader of the Labour Party, do you think that Labour Party is in a better position to deliver actual needs of the Labour Party, Labour people in this country?
I think it's far too early to say. We have fixed-term parliaments now, so we won't see a general election till 2020. We'll know more after May. We have the Mayor of London elections, we have elections in Scotland and Wales, and in a lot of councils across the country. So if you ask me back after May the 5th, I'll have a much better offshore argument for you.
The Conservative mayoral candidate, Mr. Sec Goldsmith, is going on the basis among the Tamils that British Prime Minister David Cameron visited Jaffna after the war and promised them an international inquiry. That international inquiry is on now. There's a UN-led investigation, and there was a report by the UN Human Rights High Commissioner, and subsequently there is a resolution, a binding resolution on Sri Lanka. What is your why do you think Tamils should vote for the Labour Party?
I think they should vote for the Labour Party and for the Mayor of London because they want to see fares frozen for 4 years, because they want to see everybody have everybody an opportunity of granting a home. The Mayor for London doesn't have an international policy, so I would suggest that Tamils should be slightly sceptical of Zach Goldsmith's claims, because actually the whole UNHCR process began long before David Cameron actually went to Sri Lanka. And I think that his going to Sri Lanka and grandstanding subsequently hasn't been lived up to. And we're seeing from his ministers in the Foreign Office a greater desire to do trade with Sri Lanka than force them to actually have a proper truth and reconciliation process.
But we hear some complaints, at least some of the Tamils, affected Tamils from Sri Lanka who are living in UK, of the view that your mayoral candidate, Sadiq Khan, was a powerful cabinet minister when the war was taking place, and you have chartered flight returning refugees from UK at that time. I mean, they are sceptical about voting for him, and how do you convince them?
Well, I'm trying to remember what Sadiq was actually doing in the last Gordon Brown government, but actually I think that Gordon Brown did a very good job. He was the first person to actually stand up and call for an international independent inquiry. Before him, David Miliband, when he was Foreign Secretary, actually went to Sri Lanka to try and stop the heavy bombardment and the civil war. And I worked closely with David Miliband when, as you will remember, all the Tamils were out in Parliament Square, and I think he did an enormously good job. Could more have been done? Oh yes, always. But I hope that whole experience says to the Tamil community, you need international friends, you need to know other people, you need to form your networks. You can't stand alone, because we can only resolve this problem together.
If we look at these recent elections, parliamentary elections, how the Tamils would have gone, the trend, the past and the last elections? Do you think Tamils have voted more for the Conservative Party because the Prime Minister has offered a UN resolution as well as investigation?
I can't definitely answer that question. My political instinct says to me, in areas perhaps where there are some areas where clearly the Tamil community came out and voted Labour, in Ilford North, where Wes Streeting won, clearly the Tamil community were pivotal, and that seat went Labour, whereas in Harrow, where we hoped we could gain one from the Conservatives, it became stronger Conservative, where Tamils clearly appeared to have voted in some number for the Conservatives. So I don't think that there was a consistent pattern across London, and I do think it had more to do with UK domestic politics than it did international politics. But again, I can't give you any proof of that, it's just my instinct.
No, but I say that is seen as a great achievement in terms of justice, delivering justice to the victimized Tamil community.
Absolutely, but it wasn't David Cameron who provided it. It was the UNHCR, pushed by a number of governments, by Gordon Brown while he was Prime Minister, followed by David Cameron. And don't forget the Americans, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama had an enormous influence on getting the UN to actually start along that path.
Madam, now the UN Human Rights High Commissioner has come out with a very strong report on his human rights investigation on Sri Lanka. And he said that there are credible evidences are there that there could have been mass-scale war crimes and crimes against humanity committed against the Tamils, especially during the final stage of the war. And he came out with a report and he made a lot of recommendations, and there was a subsequent resolution which was co-sponsored by Sri Lanka. The main point that was in the recommendation is the hybrid mechanism to probe whatever that is alleged. But what they have got now is a domestic mechanism with international support or judges foreign participation in terms of judges, prosecutors and investigators. But Sri Lanka, despite co-sponsoring the resolution, has the president now, Srisena is now saying he's not going to accept any foreign involvement in the process. And he has said that in an interview with Al Jazeera, and repeatedly he has said that.
ප්‍රධාන වශයෙන්ම පහුගිය සැප්තැම්බර් මාසයේ ඉදිරිපත් කරන ලද යෝජනාවලදී අපිට යුද අපරාධ චෝදනා එල්ල වෙලා නැහැ. මානව හිමිකම් කඩකිරීම පිළිබඳව චෝදනා තමයි ඇතුළත් වෙලා තිබෙන්නේ. ඒකට මේ මානව හිමිකම් කඩකිරීම පිළිබඳව චෝදනා ඇතුළත් වෙලා තිබෙන කරුණු සැලකිල්ලට ගත් විට අපි ප්‍රධාන වශයෙන්ම මේ යෝජනා වල අදාළ කරුණු ක්‍රියාත්මක කිරීමට එක්සත් ජාතීන්ගේ සාමාජික රටක් විදියට බැඳී සිටිනවා. නමුත් ඒ බැඳී සිටීම තුළ සෑම විටම අපි කටයුතු කරන්නේ අපේ රටේ ස්වාධීනත්වයට එකඟවයි. අපේ රටේ ආණ්ඩුක්‍රම ව්‍යවස්ථාවට එකඟවයි. දැන් මේදී මේ කටයුතු වලට ප්‍රධාන වශයෙන්ම විදේශීය තාක්ෂණික ඥානය යම් දේවල් පිළිබඳව අපිට ලබා ගන්න පුළුවන්. නමුත් පුද්ගලයන් විදිහට අපේ රටට කිසිසේත්ම අවශ්‍ය වන්නේ නැහැ පිටස්තරින් පුද්ගලයන් මේ කටයුතු වලට. අපේ රටේ අපක්ෂපාතී අධිකරණයක් තිබෙනවා. අපේ රටේ අපක්ෂපාතීව කටයුතු කරන්න පුළුවන් අපරාධ පරීක්ෂණ දෙපාර්තමේන්තුව සහ වෙනත් මෙවැනි දේවල් පිළිබඳව පරීක්ෂණ කටයුතු කරන ආයතන තිබෙනවා.
How do you view that?
Well, it's nonsense, isn't it? There's clearly not just human rights violations, but there is evidence of war crimes, and those have been contained in the various reports that the UNHCR has done over the last 4 or 5 years. I think the government in the UK is letting Sri Lanka off the hook. There was always in the beginning a demand for an international independent inquiry. That then got watered down by the government to a hybrid. It got watered down further to some international involvement, to the position you saw in your clip, where there should be none. But I think this is the process of the kind of world and Britain standing back and hoping that it can all be glossed over with the first anniversary of the Sirisena election victory.
One of the recommendations by the Human Rights High Commissioner is that the police and defence sector, the military sector, should be reformed. And if you take the history, the UK government has been training Sri Lankan police. And now the UK government has pledged 6.6 million to reform police as well as the post-war reconciliation process. How do you reconcile both?
I mean, clearly it's not my job to reconcile them because I'm not a member of the UK government. But any efforts the government can make to bringing around peace and reconciliation or reforming the police and making them more independent has to be a good thing. But it does worry you that that money will be circumvented to institutions that are not reformed and that will continue to repress not only the Tamils but other members of society in Sri Lanka. We both know that Freedom from Torture, a very well respected independent organisation in the UK, has seen at least 8 or 9 people who have returned by the UK immigration services to Sri Lanka and were then tortured, some of them as late as July last year. So we do know that there is a real cause for concern. And those kind of institutions, the army and the police, some of them are still behaving in the way that they did before.
But Foreign Minister Hugo Siva, in his recent statement at a function, a Tamil function recently, last month actually, he has cast doubt on the reports of these independent organizations.
Well, I'm not sure how he can do that. These Freedom from Torture, I've certainly known for almost 20 years. I found their work to be of the highest probity and standard. What they do is they provide counselling and psychological services for the victims of torture. They're not there as political propagandists for any cause or for any part of the world. They simply try to help those individuals who present with post-traumatic stress disorder or serious psychological problems because of what they faced in their home country. And what their report says is still that the largest group they have coming to see them are Sri Lankan Tamils, and that those people have been, in a few cases, tortured as late as July last year. And I see nothing they have done that would make you believe that they are not accurate in their claims.
Madam, and you were there at the BTA function last month. And UK Foreign Minister Hugo hailed the progress made after the new government came to power, Sirisena government came to power. And he also urged the Tamils living in UK to go to Sri Lanka and see for themselves the progress made, not to believe all the reports and stuff like that. And this is what he said.
Happier circumstances than perhaps before. As I was saying to some of you earlier, not everything in the garden is rosy, but it's a lot better than it has been, and I believe things are moving in the right direction. I was in Sri Lanka most recently in January. I was able to meet on a number of occasions with the Prime Minister, Ranil Wickremesinghe, and together we went up to Jaffna, or the Ton, somebody told me earlier what it was, Taekwondo, and where I spoke at that, which was a remarkable privilege, and I was able to meet again with the Chief Minister in Jaffna to discuss progress there. Whilst it's true that the military have been hand in hand with land, I continue to put pressure on it. It should be more and it should be quicker. But there is evidence that is now happening. The mining funded in part by the UK continues as well. But what is important, I think, in both the Northern Province and the Eastern Province, as I've said this before, is that actually the British Tamils actually go there and see for themselves what is happening on the ground and don't hear from friends and relations what they think is happening on the ground. It's important that each and every one of you do travel there. Equally, as the great backbone of British business, and many of you are, as I said before, let's stop the idea that war's over. The North and the East need to be based on differences. they can be based on proper businesses, and if any group of people are good at businesses have it. So I urge you to spend some of your money there, invest there, build up some businesses there, and get the economy going, because of course the economy is still very well balanced.
There are some progress made in Sri Lanka. Don't you believe that?
It would be hard to believe that in the last, 7 years, there has been no progress. The question is whether the progress is of a speed that's acceptable to people.
But he is expecting the people, he is inviting Tamil people to go back to Sri Lanka and see for themselves. And we're talking about more on the business side. What is the Labour Party's position in this regard?
Well, I mean, diaspora of every developing country is very important to its future. I would urge Tamils in London and the UK just to be careful about their return, to make sure that they are not placing themselves in danger or in jeopardy. And I clearly, I mean, if it was my family, I would have kind of believed their view if they told me it, so I wasn't quite sure about that.
You said about the Tamils should be careful if you want to get back to Sri Lanka, or when they visit Sri Lanka, because the things are not perfectly in place. But several countries are returning the failed asylum seekers. In Australia, Canada, and including UK is one of the biggest countries that return failed asylum seekers. Do you agree with the asylum policies in that regard?
No, I think it's far too dangerous to be returning people. There's not enough evidence that there's been enough work being done to actually resolve these difficulties. As you know, a lot of the land is still very militarised and under the control of the army in the north and the east, to where I anticipate people may be being returned. So we've got to see a much more confidence building about the structures of government. That Sirisena and his government have got to act much more strongly in regard to the land and in regard to confidence building before we can be absolutely confident that people are okay if they're returned to Sri Lanka.
Being an MP, and you have been voicing for the Tamils for a very long time, the government is sending confusing signals. The President Sirisena said that no, we are not going to accept any international participation in the accountability process. The Prime Minister is saying that no, President didn't say that. And Foreign Minister Mangala Samaraveera recently in US attended a private function. Actually, it's under US Peace Council or somebody. And there he has said, we will fully implement the UN Human Rights Council resolution, and we will accept whether it's foreign judges, investigators, or prosecutors. And this is what he said.
In our Geneva resolution, we committed to have a judicial process with international participation, and now we are, in fact, one of the reasons we have initiated the consultation process is also to decide on at what level that international participation ought to be. Frankly, we too admit, and if you read the minutes of the Hansard after the debate on Geneva, immediately after that was passed in October, you found that even some of the more nationalist parties in Parliament did talk about the need for international participation. And also many, maybe across the board, there was a general agreement that there has to be special courts be set up in Sri Lanka if that process is to have any credibility at all, because, as I said before, over the last 10 years, the credibility of the Sri Lankan judiciary was totally lost because of the politicization of the process by the previous government. So I think it is only fair that the victims of the war would want some form of guarantee that the new courts will deliver justice and accountability in a fair manner, and for that we are willing to consider the participation of international actors. They could be judges, they could be forensic experts, investigators, prosecutors. All these options are...
Being a British MP, which account will you believe? The President, the Foreign Minister or the Prime Minister?
I think there's probably something in all of the different answers, aren't there? I imagine that President Sirisena is trying to move towards the UN at the same time as protecting himself at home from the more radical elements of the country. So I think it's to be fair to him, I think it's a very difficult balancing act for him. But clearly, Sri Lanka won't be brought into the kind of the centre of the family of nations until they deal with this, and there does need to be some sort of international involvement to ensure fairness and transparency. Getting there might be a difficulty for him.
But even the UN Human Rights High Commissioner was in Sri Lanka late last month, and he said when he wound up his visit, he had met the press, and he said the government leaders appears to be wavering on the UN resolution. But for foreigners, do you think the government is sending confusing signals to the international community?
The UK government or the Sri Lankan
Sri Lankan government?
Oh yes, I'm sure. But hasn't it always done that? Doesn't it have a history of saying diametrically different things to different people? And I imagine that Sirisena is trying to move towards the UN at the same time as maintaining his base at home, which is a challenge.
But the international community they are referring to, the Sri Lankan government referring to, like UK, USA, Canada and other members of the UN Human Rights Council, they appear to be very happy about, they are trying to, they buy the confusing signal from Sri Lanka, don't they?
I think there is certainly on the part of the UK government, I'm worried that they've become far more interested in trade with Sri Lanka than resolving some of the human rights problems. And I think from your clip that we saw from Mr. Swire, the Foreign Office Minister, and with the debates we've had in the House of Commons, we see them forsaking kind of those human rights in favour of trade. And that is a worry, because I do think it's our job to place, as the UK, to place pressure on the Sri Lankan government to keep them to progress on peace and reconciliation.
Isn't that the case in the other countries concerned, like US? US is another country which co-sponsored.
No, not just Britain, but it is. We have to be responsible first for our own behaviour. So it's our job to maintain that pressure on the government, on the Sri Lankan government. But also, yes, I would want America, Canada, Australia, all the countries in the world which have a very significant Tamil community.
So, in essence, you are saying that international community is not behaving in a desirable manner as far as Sri Lanka's justice process is concerned?
I think it needs to be clearer and tougher, because if it's not, then it won't happen. I mean, that is our experience, isn't it? Since 2009, in the end, the Sri Lankan government is dragged kicking and screaming towards progress by the UN and by countries like Britain and America, making it quite clear what they expect. If there's a sense of compromise, you're not going to get progress.
So how do you make it clear and hard?
I think you keep the UN Human Rights Council together in demanding an international involvement in the process, and make sure that the larger countries, the very strategically important countries like America, stick to that as well. No backsliding.
As you said, UK government should exert enough pressure on Sri Lanka, and they are going soft, you say. What kind of pressure, tangible pressure, do you expect UK government to impose on Sri Lanka?
Certainly under Gordon Brown's government, GSP Plus, that's kind of a European support for Sri Lankan companies, was stopped. They're looking at restarting it. I certainly don't think it should be restarted unless there's progress. The involvement with the IMF is always there. You know, the Sri Lankan economy is in quite a parlous state, so the IMF should be quite clear that any assistance means that they expect that there will be progress in this regard.
But GSP Plus is not connected to the war crime, isn't it?
No, but GSP Plus was stopped because there are requirements that governments and civil society does have some regard to human and civil rights. And one of the reasons why GSP Plus was stopped, and I certainly went to Europe to campaign for that, was that when the investigators from the EU went in, a number of them were threatened, couldn't find out the information to the questions that they needed answers for, and in the end, the investigators gave up and the GSP Plus was withdrawn. So yes, there is a real tangible connection between the support that is given through GSP Plus and the EU and what goes on in the country.
The GSP Plus, when that was suspended, I was reporting from Sri Lanka, when that GSP Plus was suspended, the then Foreign Minister Rohit Bogarlagama said that the benefit they get from GSP Plus is an ignorable element, and they have survived nearly a decade without that. Do you think not offering them back the GSP Plus will be a tangible pressure?
Absolutely. I mean, yes, the country has survived, but has it been tougher? Absolutely. And if it didn't matter to them, why did they fight so hard for it at the time?
But the IMF, you talk about IMF,
yeah.
The IMF is about to grant some aid to Sri Lanka, considering the progress made on the reconciliation side.
Yeah, well, as part of the IMF, we have to be resolute in making sure that only happens if there is real and tangible proof. Clearly, we're only one party in the IMF, but we are, a party that can make its view heard.
On the asylum policy, what is the Labour Party going to do? The UK government is returning people, so especially to Sri Lanka, those failed asylum seekers. As a party, what kind of pressure you can exert on this government to ensure that they review their asylum policies?
Well, as you know, I'm a backbench MP. I am not responsible for Labour Party policy. But if I was, I would say that until we can be convinced that nobody will be tortured or harmed if they are returned to Sri Lanka as a failed asylum seeker, that they should not be returned. But that's the kind of Siobhain McDonagh view. It's not...
The party's view.
Yeah.
Well, on June 23rd, the EU referendum is coming.
Yeah.
And Prime Minister David Cameron has promised during the elections he's going to hold that referendum. There appears to be a confusion within the Conservative Party whether they should vote yes or no. And the Prime Minister said this.
The deal is done. The date is set. On the 23rd of June, you will have your say. Britain and Europe, in or out. There will be lots of debate, but this referendum is straightforward. It's about you and your family. Where will you be better off? Where will there be more trade, more jobs, and lower prices? In or out? Where will you be safer? Where are terrorists more likely to be tracked down and criminals brought to justice? In or out? Where will our country be stronger? Where will Britain have the biggest influence? In or out? No one's saying we couldn't succeed if we left Europe. Of course we could. This is Britain. We can achieve great things. The question is where best we can succeed. And I believe that is in a reformed Europe. Some say we could leave and carry on trading with our neighbours. But the countries outside the EU with full access to the single market still have to pay into it and accept immigrants, and they don't get any say on the rules that affect them. Britain is different. We now have a special status in Europe, the best of both worlds. Access to the world's largest single market, but no discrimination because we don't have the euro, and no obligation to bail out Eurozone countries. We have the right to live, work and retire abroad, but no Schengen open borders. We've got cooperation on vital security issues, but no European army. And we've got influence over the biggest global issues, but no part in a European superstate. I'm not saying Europe is perfect, far from it, but by staying in, we can continue to reform it.
What is your party's position with regard to this?
Labour's policy is to stay in Europe. We do not want to undermine jobs and trade at a time when the economy is perilously in danger. And also we appreciate the benefits of the social Europe, that we have greater rights at work, rights to maternity leave and paid holidays, and all the things that are the plus side of being in Europe.
The security side of it?
Security, I think we are much more secure working together. The European arrest warrant, when we had our own bombs in London, when the bus was exploded, one of the guys who did it escaped to mainland Europe and was brought back within weeks because of the European arrest warrant. So we can keep tabs on people much more clearly. We're part of a much bigger union. That doesn't mean to say there aren't downsides to Europe. I mean, I say that I am a sceptical, a reluctant in, because I do accept it's a big bureaucracy that is fairly unaccountable to anyone, and there are things I want to change about it, but I wouldn't want to take a leap in the dark and put our economy at risk.
But can UK, the Prime Minister is talking about reforming UK. He said the Britain will accept a reformed European Union. Do you think UK can reform European Union?
Oh, absolutely, yes. I mean, there are such a big union. There are countries unhappy with different bits and pieces. I mean, it's all about compromise and negotiation. But can it be reformed? Of course it can, yes.
Madam, what is your advice for the UK Tamils in their quest for human rights issues being addressed in Sri Lanka and their political rights?
I would say to Tamils based in the UK, get involved in mainstream politics, whether you're Labour, whether you're Conservative, whether you're a Lib Democrat, whatever you are, get involved and place your influence on the political party of your choice, because only by being part of the political system can you get the government to do something about what happens in Sri Lanka. Go and see your MP, write to them, email them, keep making the point, because generally in a world we cannot rely on other people to do things for us unless we make our case. So I would urge every UK, every London Tamil, make your case, see your MP and explain exactly how you feel.
They did that in 2009, but the war, you could stop the war, being a greater power. And also, your leader, Jeremy Corbyn, has been voicing for the Tamils and the rights before becoming the leader. And we don't hear much about him on the Sri Lankan issue. Will you be pushing him to kind of...
Well, I mean, certainly I think that I have no doubt that Jeremy will continue his very strong and steadfast support of the Tamils. We'd like to hear more from him. There is a reception at the House of Commons in the Ackley Suite at Portcullis House next Monday, which is the 12th, I think, the 11th or the 12th?
11th.
The 11th of April of Tamils for Labour, and it starts at 7:30, and I know that Hilary Benn, the Shadow Foreign Secretary, will be there, and I am sure that Jeremy will certainly be there if he can, so come and have your say.
Yeah, but in Parliament, do you think you'll get him speak in Parliament? People like you, there are a lot of Labour MPs like John Ryan and others who are fighting for, you are voicing for the Tamils.
Yeah.
Do you think you'll get your new leader to speak in Parliament, especially on this? Keep mounting the pressure.
I am sure that Jeremy at some point will. I mean, it's different being a backbench MP. You can be more flexible, add to different debates. It's harder if you're the leader. But I have every confidence knowing that Jeremy, that if he can speak up for the Tamils in Parliament, he will. But it is very important to understand that by just getting up and talking in Parliament doesn't bring about change on its own. You know, it's harder than that. But, you know, there are no magic wands in this. Just because you did something in 2009 doesn't mean you're going to resolve things. I come from the island of Ireland. We fought England for 600 years, and it took us till the election of Tony Blair in 1997 to bring about a peace. You know, things don't happen overnight. You have to keep working at them, and that's what I'd say to UK Tamils.
Thanks for joining us, madam. Thanks for your valuable input and the time. அதாவது பிரித்தாவணியில் இருக்கக்கூடிய தமிழர்கள் தமது தமது நாடாளுமன்ற உறுப்பினரிடம் சென்று இந்த மக்களுடைய ஈழத்தமிழர்களுடைய பிரச்சனை தொடர்பாக தொடர்ச்சியாக அழுத்தங்களை கொடுக்கும்படியும் அவர்கள் எந்த கட்சியாக இருந்தாலும் சரி, அவர்கள் தொழிற்கட்சியாக இருந்தாலும் சரி, லிபரல் டெமோக்ராட் கட்சியாக இருந்தாலும் சரி, பழமைவாத கட்சியாக இருந்தாலும் சரி, தமது பாராளுமன்ற நாடாளுமன்ற உறுப்பினரிடம் சென்று இந்த மக்களுக்குரிய கோரிக்கைகளை தொடர்ச்சியாக அழுத்தமாக அந்த நாடாளுமன்ற உறுப்பினரிடம் முன்வைக்கும்படியும் அந்த போராட்டங்கள் ஊடாகத்தான் தொடர்ச்சியாக போராடுவதன் ஊடாகத்தான் இலங்கையில் தமிழ் மக்களுக்குரிய மனித உரிமைகளையும் அரசியல் உரிமைகளையும் உறுதிப்படுத்த முடியும். அதற்காக தொடர்ந்தும் போராட வேண்டும். அதற்கான ஆதரவை தன் போன்ற ஏனைய நாடாளுமன்ற உறுப்பினர்கள் வழங்க தயாராக இருப்பதாக மிச்சம் மற்றும் மூடன் பகுதிக்கான பிரித்தானிய நாடாளுமன்ற உறுப்பினர் சிபோன் மெக்டோனா அவர்கள் தெரிவிக்கிறார். இத்துடன் இந்த நிகழ்ச்சியை நிறைவு செய்துள்ளோம். மற்றொரு நிகழ்ச்சியை சந்திக்கும் வரை உங்களிடமிருந்து விடைபெற்றுக் கொள்ள நான் P.Karunakharan. நன்றி, வணக்கம்.